himself to them later in the episode, potentially.
Well, also right there in that moment, Cersei indicated that Qyburn had already started to talk to the Golden Company.
Oh, right.
And this is kind of...
Tell us more about the Golden
This is a really obscure reference. It's appeared once before in the TV show. In Season 4, when Davos was handed the king to Stannis Baratheon, he mentioned, like, we should hire the Golden Company. But other than that, we've not really heard a whole lot about it. It's kind of implied that Jorah Mormont spent some time with them before he joined up with Daenerys, but we don't really know for sure. But in the books, it's a much larger piece of the puzzle. They're the largest mercenary army in the Free Cities. And for the most part, they really hold true to their contracts. The only contract they ever broke was one with the city of Myr, who is the Hound's man bun toting friend's home. But also, it was founded by... I had this all written down and I left it in my car. Whoops. Aaron Storm, who was a legitimized bastard from a Targaryen, like a recent Targaryen. So this could be really interesting if the TV show plays it up the same way. So all of a sudden we could have, I think they're about 10,000 strong, a 10,000 strong mercenary army all of a sudden joining the Lannisters, opposing Daenerys Targaryen, led by a legitimized bastard in that same family line.
What's crazy though? Do you guys feel like at all this episode served to brush them under the rug? Like she even brought up in that same breath in that conversation with Jaime right away that she was like, well, we've got the Golden Army that are going to be behind us. He's like, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be enough. And then she's like, oh, maybe you're right. So it's like, are they even going to show up at this point? I mean, they have to because they made such a big deal out of the accountant from the Citadel, who was that guy, right? The Iron Bank. Like, they made a big deal enough to make him a character, and I think he's still... sneaking around.
He's looming King's Landing.
Yeah, King's Landing somewhere. So.
Yeah, it feels like another back chip in Cersei's pocket. All right, so let's move on because there's more to uncover in that scene later.
So many things to cover.
Yeah, so Jon, Drogon, and Dany are at Dragonstone, and we get two fucking great payoffs here. And I'll let anybody take the floor on the first one.
I'm not even gonna go into that yet. I just like that she rides him back in as like a victory lap, and it's like we just destroyed the Lannister army. Take a little lap around Dragonstone. All right, now we're going to land in front of Jon.
She's got some swag there, and she even says it. He's like, how you doing? And she's like, well, we have less enemies than we did yesterday.
You can see,
she rehearsed that shit. The whole bit, she's like, what am I going to say?
She's just flying back on Drogon, just rehearsing lines. No, but like there's an air of confidence about her that she didn't have the previous episode. And she's like, all right, we moved this piece on the chessboard and we took this piece from them. Now what? Yeah. And then... that touching moment. That fucking moment with Jon and Drogon was fucking awesome.
So cool.
Fantastic.
So cool.
Everything about that, like, let me just cut to really quick, like, god damn, computer graphics have come a long way. Like, when he's, like, running his hand along the scales and stuff, and, like, god, that looked fantastic. You know that, like, this is just a passion project for everyone who's working on it at this point. You know what I mean? They're putting in extra hours to make this thing look fucking perfect. And this season especially looks beautiful. The CG is fantastic. So anyways, all of that is to say, wow. Do you guys all consider this the revelation in your eyes, or do we need more?
I think they're slowly paying it off because we get more later in the episode about Jon's lineage.
Yeah, 2 drops really in one episode.
2 significant drops.
This is now, I would say, the second of 3 that's happened. We had the Tower of Joy, obviously, which was our first payout. We don't know a ton from that. Everyone assumes that this theory is coming true, but we haven't gotten all the information.
The theory again being just if no one's on the same page here.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers that Jon, Seth,
that Jon was before this, and before what we'll talk about later, was a kind of a bastard son of Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark. And so obviously he would have parentage on both the Stark side and the Targaryen side. We'll get more into that later on because
making him
fire. Some more information comes
ice.
there, but he's fire and ice. So obviously the dragon understands a little bit and can clearly feel it, maybe. Maybe there's like an innate sense that they have together, kind of what the dragons have with Dany, and
They've played it up
he's one of three.
They've played it up that these dragons are likened to him, right? They fly over him, they let him touch him. And let's talk about the tension real quick. This is something that the show has always done a really good job of. But Drogon comes in like a bat out of hell, and he's like on the ground, and you feel like, is he just gonna burn Jon to the crown for a second? And then he like lightens up to him in a very dragon way, and he lets him touch him, and then
this was How to Train Your Dragon 3.
Yeah,
I also
exactly.
think the phrase like a bat out of hell has never been like less cool than the actual thing that happened but, like, than this one.
True.
A dragon coming from a loot train battle.
Yeah, exactly. And then Dany gets off Drogon and even is kind of wowed by the whole thing.
She
like,
couldn't
what
even
just
see it at first. Though,
Yeah.
which like I think took her by surprise, and then she like kind of sees it, and she's like,
I expected there to be a conversation about that, though. You know what I mean? Like,
no, because Jorah comes in and cocksblock the entire thing.
The next payoff. Is
yeah,
great,
but
too.
but hold on, but like that moment where she gets off the dragon and comes down and be like, they're fucking cool, right? Like, I mean, that's what that whole conversation was essentially.
I
it
like
wasn't
that he
like
saves himself.
Yeah.
She's like, they're wonderful, and he's like, or she goes, they're majestic or something, and he goes, that's not how I would call it, and she's like, kind of gives him the death look, and he's like, no, but that too. Like,
They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. Yeah, dragons. Yeah, so then obviously Jorah comes in and creates some weird sexual tension between the three of them.
They're trying.
And he kind of, I love how the guys kind of part ways, and he's just there in a cape, and he's like showing it all off, like, I'm back. No grayscale.
Rehearse that shit. You know, like they were like off in the corner, like, let's make a really cool entrance.
Yeah, exactly. And then they talk, Jon says, I served with your father and asked to return. And then Dany asks, or Jorah asks if he can return to Dany's service, and she obliges him, of course. So, do we have anything else to add here? Any last thoughts before we move on?
I don't think so.
All right, so next we get the Raven payoff that we kind of have been waiting for, where Bran wargs into a flock of ravens and flies first over Eastwatch from Winterfell and then north of the Wall to see thousands of wights past Eastwatch, and when they're seen by the Night King, they kind of all dissipate. And Bran to the Maester at Winterfell is like, ravens, we really need to send ravens. And I think the Maester's kind of like, you just took all of our ravens.
They just flew. Okay, so I have a question here, and I don't know if any of you guys noticed this. Why were the raven's eyes clicking on and off of being warged?
Because I feel as if that's how they were indicating that that's what happened, because it wasn't strongly implied in the show that Bronn was warging into the ravens.
I feel like when things have white eyes, we tend to assume that that's what it is. I was almost curious if that was like he hasn't quite gotten a hold on his powers yet.
I could see that too. That's a good thought. I like that. And birds also have some kind of weird third eye anyway, so...
Okay, yeah, so you're thinking they're like he's going between ravens, or not?
I don't know whether he's going between ravens, and it was like to the front, to the side, to the back. Cha cha. We took that in a very different route. I went very like PG. He went to the yin yang twins.
No, I think it's fair. I want to know more and more about Bran.
Always.
But I couldn't tell if that was like he was trying to get a view from all sides, or if that was like he couldn't control his abilities yet.
Yeah,
like he couldn't warg into one raven at a time. It was like boom, 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 boom.
I think it's a really fair question because I want to know more and more about Bran's abilities every time I see him on
it's
screen.
Still so cryptic. We don't know much of anything.
Yeah, and now that he's back inside the wall, I feel like we're less likely to learn more about it. Like, we saw him out there in training and, like, ass to the fire. Is that a saying?
Sure.
Okay.
It is.
And like, having to, come up with answers to his abilities on the fly, and now he's, like, relatively safe, and all we know is that he's, like, trying to figure them out in his own head, and he's not doing a very good job of communicating them with his sisters and everyone else. So
interesting piece enough, kind of stuff that happened beyond the wall. You get his ravens flying over the whites, and obviously comes up on the Night King, and Night King turns his head, and the ravens shoo, and Bran breaks his warging, and I mean, to be honest, I think that's all part of the Night King having touched him. And
do you guys feel like the Night King's army is more substantial now? Do you fear it more? There's a lot more people. Like I felt like it was by far the biggest we've seen at this juncture. Like it felt dominant.
I don't know if it's the biggest we've seen yet, or it's just that we haven't seen them in so long. You know what I mean? If you remember the fucking
the trailer, the intro trailer where they had like the Night's King, that was basically the trailer, right? It was the entire white army walking by, and you had like a couple giants here and there. And
remember Hardhome though, when they were attacking, and there was like waves of them coming in, and it was just like it was that many of them, but they were just in a much more compact area, and it was just like this unbelievable, like moving blanket of death. It was unreal. So
it felt more vast to me for some reason, maybe because of the way it was shot or like the overarching view, but it felt more dominant.
And make no mistake, like they're fucking loaded. They've got more people. I think we're meant to believe that they've got more people than every other army combined.
Not like their army is going anywhere either. So like a couple get burned, but like casualties of death are just going to be reanimated. And I mean, it's like,
So let's. I think that's good. We covered everything there. That's a quick scene, really, and then we jump all the way down to Old Town, and we see Archmaester saying a cripple boy claims to have seen whites north of the wall.
These fucking guys.
This scene may have pissed me off more than anything else in the show so far. You have Sam. All right, so this was the point I had written down in my notebook, also left in my car. But the piece is, Sam just cured Jorah of Grayscale, right? Or we are to assume that he took care of it. The Archmaester says something along the lines of, like, maesters who are more knowledgeable than you couldn't do this. So clearly Sam has some aspect of intelligence that he should be understood and they should pay attention to.
Or he got lucky.
He read the instructions. Let's put it as intelligence.
That's all you need in IT.
So I have this issue that they're just discrediting him, and the Archmaester really should be like, wait, maybe we should take this under advisement.
Right.
And the other guys are just crusty old men, super pissed, and they're like, why don't you go back to scribing these old scrolls? And it's like, come on, guys, like...
Yeah, I agree.
He knows what the fuck he's talking about.
It was a super frustrating scene because we like Sam so much. Right. We really appreciate him.
True.
And the Maesters in the Citadel are the opposition of kind of that logic. They're the voices of supposedly rationale.
Do you think this is the last we see of the Citadel and the Maesters? Because part of me thinks it is. Like,
I think, for this. I mean, for what the scene we saw was actually what we call the Conclave, which are like the Archmaesters of each of their individual subject areas. So, the guy who was sitting there at the end of the table was like the big Archmaester. He was the one in charge of everybody. But he even, like, I kind of want to challenge that a little bit. He did kind of say to Sam, it's like, we're going to learn more about this.
Yeah.
Everybody else discredited them.
It's more the rest of them that like aren't willing to listen to both sides.
Yeah, Shmi seems like he's on the side of... That's Shmi, right?
From second week in a row that you've made just a great reference to like the lesser characters.
That's right, though, right? Like, that guy plays Shmi and Hook, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
Yeah. And he played Dumbledore.
It's IMDb it.
Oh. I think he played Dumbledore.
We're going to do
the guy
that
that plays
right
Dumbledore
now.
I don't think
and then,
that was him.
Isn't he at a table? Is he at a table with Slughorn though? Because that's Archmaester.
I said it, and then I felt like I
should have taken it back.
Can't take it to the grave. We're recording this.
He was fucking Smee though in Hook.
You're right.
Yeah, I'll take that all day.
So Sam,
what podcast is this?
Yeah. So Sam specifically says, "Listen, I've seen these guys," and that's when he kind of says, "Okay, I understand. Like, we'll take it under advisement." And then is it? Yeah, it's in this scene where they say, "We haven't." Has he heard about Randall and Dickon? And he's like, "No, he's a good lad," and they just kind of leave it at that, which I found to be weird. But anyway.
I still don't get. I have a hard time with, like, I'm going to call this the snow blindness. Has anyone ever used that? I'm going to call this the snow blindness, that, like, some people just refuse to believe that these White Walkers exist and that they're real, right? And these guys, of everyone. So, like, I've been saying, like, for a while, okay, how does Cersei not know this is real? They built a fucking wall. Like, give me a break. Like, why do they think they built that wall? But then somebody today in a discussion brought up to me, they built the wall as essentially a prison for people to go and work at a wall that means nothing, essentially. You know? That's where they send the degenerates to go. So if it was a real wall that was guarding people from things, they would send the best of the best. Instead, they send the worst of the worst.
Right.
But now we have this whole room and fucking the Citadel or whole city that is dedicated to the preservation of knowledge and the the pristine preservation of knowledge and being able to tell what's fact and what's not fact. And if there are books somewhere in there that discuss the White Walkers and like have like some idea of like the history of the First Men, then like how do they not know this? How is there not more people within the Citadel that are trying to raise the alarm. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I think the maesters at the Citadel are the people that should be the most worried about it, right? Because they have the knowledge about the Long Night and other happenings that have been attributed to White Walkers.
Yeah.
All right, so after this we get Varys and Tyrion one-on-one, kind of commiserating over a glass of wine about how crazy their rulers are while they're the hands of the king.